the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt. The hunting journey continues. Let's get into it. This episode today, wherever and whenever you are listening, we are joined by the great man, a man who I hold in very high esteem and I've been wanting to have on the podcast for a long time. And, well, I can't say that because it's an old podcast that I wanted to get you on. So this one you're going to be on very early. So so tonight we've got Frank, who is going to be one of our regular guests. We're doing things a bit different nowadays, and I want to tap into the vast array of people that I hold in high esteem, and Frank is one of those people. And I'm looking forward to having semi-regular chats and picking his brain and having a bit of a discussion and learning from him what he knows and what he's learnt from others, like the Hunter's Campfire, and we'll go from there. Do you want to do a shout out to him early, Frank? Because I know.
Yeah, might as well shout out to the Hunter's Campfire. Good on you, Ian and Mark and Jono. It's it's great listening to you guys, and thank you so much for taking me in as one of your own. I appreciate it.
Mate, on them, I have to say, you put us onto them a while back, and I have been really, really impressed with some of the things that they do for the hunting community, and not just like the big camp for everybody, but the fact that they take time out to really try and help individuals and get them up to speed with what's going on. So, look, it's great to see. There's some really great people in this community that are happy to do things and not try and make money, that they're just in it for the benefit of everybody and to help people along. So it's really impressive, and a big shout out to them because I think they're doing a great job, and I'd love to see more people doing that sort of stuff. There is plenty doing it. Let's be frank about that, is that there's plenty of people out there that are helping and, do it out of the kindness of their heart, and good on them. I think that's how our community, our hobby, our sport grows, and that's what we need.
100%. 100% is what we need right now, especially in this day and age. Especially with the Hunter's Campfire, those guys there, you can ask them a question. I remember just reaching out to Ian and asking him a question about the R license, and he set me up, no worries whatsoever. And I've learned so much having a chat to them, even going onto the deer camp with the boys last year and this year. Just, it's fantastic meeting other like-minded individuals, and everyone at different levels. So you can learn off one person, you can give experiences to another, and it's just fantastic to hear everyone else's opinion on certain matters and stuff like that, especially when you've got a bunch of people around a campfire and you have a chat to them, and it's just great that everyone can just be together and everyone is equal, no matter what your background is. When you're sitting there around a campfire, you are all pretty much equal in the fact of you're there for the same reason. So therefore you are sharing your knowledge, sharing your passion, I suppose. I think it's fantastic. Should be more of it, Matt. Should be more of it, mate.
I agree. And, that's one thing when you do listen to them, there's no ego involved. And I really like that. It's not about me. It's they come at it from trying to help people and have those discussions, and it's not all about look at me. So fantastic. I love what they're doing. Well, let's get on to the actual camp that you went on, because you brushed myself and our state forest hunt because that took priority. And
well, I had a previous offer. I was always going to the Hunter's Campfire.
So I was a side thought. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not saying you're a side piece. I'm just saying that when I went last year, I knew I was going to go back there again, no matter when it was back on. And I tried to take you there too. I tried to get you to come down with me as well. I remember that. Yes, I do remember that.
No, you did. In fairness, no, you did. I couldn't get 2 trips away, so I'd already. Nundle's a bit more of a hike than Mooragle North, so
it is. I think it was 9 hours for me, but a week there hunting, having so many experiences, catching up with so many guys from last year, meeting new guys. It was just, it's just fantastic. It's to sit down and just talk to other like-minded individuals. It's refreshing. it's refreshing. That's what it is.
And you took okay. So I think we need to take a step back here because you are going to be a bit of a regular. We need to tell people a bit about you and your experiences, because one thing I've thoroughly enjoyed is we have a lot of conversations on the phone. My wife knows as soon as she sees your name on the phone that just there goes 3 or 4 hours of my life, and or her life. There's less time for me to do stuff for her. But let's get back into a bit of your background, because one of the things I've learnt a lot, and I've had zero experience, and I was really hoping to get to come away with you, or get you to come away with us, was on the back of Joan. And I want to talk about Joan as well, but give people a bit of your history, mate.
Wow, how far back do you want to go?
You're not that old, mate. Come on.
Okay, right. Pretty much grew up with hunting in the family sort of thing. Like my grandfather brought over when he came over from overseas, and we would go out ferreting, catching rabbits, shooting them with shotguns. So we were exposed to that at a very young age. Being young, walking around, my cousin had a small property on the outskirts of Sydney, and we would go there and we would shoot minor birds, those Indian minor birds, those invasive ones. We go around and shooting them, and that got pretty boring after 6 months because there was no more left to them.
It wiped them.
It did. It wiped them. That was great. But it progressed from that, and then we'd be doing, you'd be head shooting rabbits at 5 meters with the air rifle. Being young, but times were different back then. You can't do that now, but times were different back then. We were trusted to have the firearm, walk around, and we were just being young boys, I suppose you'd say. So it progressed from there to plenty more ferreting and rabbiting. Then pretty much when we got to an age where we could actually own our own rifles, so we went out and bought centerfires, and we went to a neighbouring property, once again with a family member. And one day I remember talking to my cousin, and he said, we got a deer last night. And I couldn't believe it. Well, you got a deer? Really? Yeah, we got a deer. Right, we're going back there tonight and we'll do it again. And so all we did then was peruse around that place pretty much every single weekend looking for animals to shoot. And it got to a point where the farmer was so happy because he didn't see not one fox, not one mouse, not one deer. Just the place was void of anything eating his crops, and he was so happy about it. So then I think that's where it all progressed from there. Then we got on to, we want one more deer, obviously. So then we started traveling out further afield and got access to some properties, which was great. Then it led me to spending my time more efficiently, I suppose you'd say, out in the field. And that's where I thought Joan would come into play, which she has. So instead of walking acres and acres and hours, Joan's pretty good where you can take her to an area and she'll find you, some sign. She'll follow that up for you. She'll indicate. And then once she indicates, then you can pretty much take over and shoot your deer or your pig. And then, you can harvest and take home meat. And it's a lot more easy exercise because she's pretty much a tool that speed up the amount of time it takes for you to obviously acquire and find animals, to get in contact with them, I suppose you'd say.
So you're being modest. There's a bit more to that story. So you've had a fair bit of private access, and you've done a lot. And when I say a lot, a damn lot of shooting and hunting. And now you've gone back to the challenges. This is one of the things that I really like about you, is that you want to be challenged.
Yeah.
And you are now really going probably the opposite way to how most people start. Most people start in a state forest, and then they, because they haven't got the private property access. You are doing it in reverse. You've been there, sort of done that. Now you're taking the bigger challenge of the state forests. And that's where the next step came in with Joan. And for our listeners that don't know Joan, and she's a GSP. And
correct, yep.
I'll let you explain the training and the side of things that you've put her through and where that's up to now.
So Joan is being put through a program called the Big Game Indicating Dog Blueprint. It's actually done by a gentleman called Paul Michaels. He's from New Zealand. He's done an absolute fantastic job at organising a way of getting you to train a dog from a pup, and in 12 months' time, to 18 months' time, shooting over the top of that dog and getting a deer or a pig, or in the case of some of the American and Canadian guys who have followed the blueprint, they're shooting bears over these dogs. So it's quite a versatile training aid, what did you say? Training program, sorry. And it's quite inexpensive for what it is. Like, it should be worth a lot more than what it is. Gentleman's put in so many hours with this program for you to be able to train your pup. So he pretty much tells you how to choose the right pup. And when you pick up the pup to 12 months down the track and you're shooting over the top of it.
All right, hold on there. Let's just go back for a sec, because there might be some listeners out there that when you're saying shooting over the top of, there is different types of ways you can hunt over dogs or with dogs. Can you give us a bit of a heads up what you mean by shooting over the dog and what the other sort of ways to do it are?
Sure. So with Joan, when I'm going hunting deer, for instance, we'll go to a likely spot to find some sign and stuff like that. I'll be watching her because she'll be in front of me about 10 to 20 meters. She'll be sniffing along the ground in front, keep an eye on me to making sure that she stays in range, obviously. Then once she finds sign, usually she'll put her nose down and she'll sniff along about a meter or so. Maybe she'll sniff over the top of a blade of grass and back over the other side. And then she'll start tracking on the ground perhaps. Or usually when I'm walking, I'll keep the wind coming from my left to right or right to left. And as I'm cutting the wind, she will walk in front of me. And then when she smells a deer, she will turn in that direction. And then she'll indicate. And depends on which way she indicates. So if she lifts her nose up, then I know that that deer is, say, 200-300 meters away. If she's got her nose down in a sneak point position, that deer may be between 50 to 100 meters away. In which case, I can walk up behind her, put my hand out with an indication, and she will go to that line and stay 10 meters in front of me at all times. Once she gets a positive ID, as in she actually sees the animal, smells the animal, she'll just hold on point. She'll lock on point, at which time I can then stand still, see if I can see the deer myself. If I can't, get the binos up, have a look for it. And once I see the deer, I can then get myself into a position, because usually the deer's focus on the dog itself. I can tap the side of my leg. She'll come straight to my side and I can shoot the deer, because what you don't want to do is let off a large rifle over the top, because unlike New Zealand, we can't use suppressors here. So we have to get our dog either beside us or behind us before we shoot, so that way they don't become deaf when you let a big gun over the top of them. So yeah. Then once you've shot the animal, the dog should actually, once you put your hand and indicate, the dog should actually move up to the deer, where the deer was, smell. The deer drops a massive scent dump, so it's got like an adrenaline dump on that spot, and then she picks up on that scent, follows that across. Usually she gets to within, 5-6 meters or so, starts looking real carefully, and then when she finds it, she usually wags her tail, and it's lying on the ground, which is good. And you walk up to it nice and gently, and obviously you touch it on the eye with the rifle to make sure it's not going to jump up, and she's found the deer, and you give her a good pat saying good girl when she's found the deer, and then she'll start plucking the deer. Actually, she starts licking them and plucking them, but after that she'll sit down next to you, and that's how it's supposed to go, Maddie. Anyway, that's how it's supposed to go. Doesn't always happen like that, but sometimes the deer obviously sees you, takes off because she's cut the wind and turned on that spot, and the deer was just watching you till you stopped, and then it takes off. But it does help you getting more contact with animals, having a dog. So you find that there would have been times where you walked past animals. Now, when you have the dog in front of you, she'll indicate one side, obviously. Best thing for you to do is actually look on the other side to make sure there's no deer coming the other way. But nonetheless, you're not walking past deer anymore. You're on fresh sign. She finds it. She moves with it. And then you know that you're following up a live animal. So, yeah, always trust the dog. Always trust the dog.
And look, this gets back to the state forest hunt I had in Maralgal North at the, not start of the year, but in April. And I wasn't successful, which was fine. Bumped a spiker. It was during the rut. Had 3 does and a buck run within 7 meters of me, but just not enough to take a shot, and that's fine. That would have been really handy to have a dog there, because one of the things that was happening and why I I thought I was closing in on the buck, and I thought I was doing really well. But 1 minute it's to my left, and then it was to my right, and it was moving around. And the reason being, it was trying to round up these does still, because there was another boy over the side croaking, and it was basically going through the clearing to get to them. Now, the clearing was a no shooting zone, so couldn't shoot on that. But I sort of was sitting there going, okay, this is where it gets really interesting, because I really am puzzled. And we've spoken about this a little bit, but for our listeners, I went back to Mooragle North about 4 or 5 weeks later after my first trip. Now, I had a pretty good trip there the first time. A lot of sign, a lot of deer. I can't remember exact numbers, but it was well over 10 deer we saw. Now, it was colder. It was sort of -2 degrees, but I went in with the game plan, knowing where the deer had been, where a lot of sign was, and because it was so cold that I'd be getting there and glassing those faces that got the early morning sun, where they're trying to feed, trying to get some warmth in them, etc.
Yep.
There was nothing. I mean, it was stone cold, dead. And that shocked me, because even the first time, there was not even brumbies. And the first time, I can't even count how many brumbies I saw. There was no roos, no wallabies, no nothing. And I was really shocked, because it is a really good forest. There's a lot of deer there, a lot of sign, there was pigs. One of the boys, he scared some pigs when we were there last. And I can't work it out, because in general, I know it was the rut, but there was sign there. There's active trails. It's really evident that that's the case. But when I went back, there was nothing. So it would have been really good in that sense to have a indicating dog, or be able to get them, because I found a heap of new scrapes. I found a heap of different things, and being able to go, all right, have the dog, scent it up, and then sort of have them trail or track would be just awesome. And I can see how it's a bit of an advantage. But, and we've had this argument, you and I, and we're going to probably have it again now, is dogs have been compared to thermal.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people say, thermal shooting's cheating. And then I hear people say, well, using a dog is almost cheating. Now, I don't think there's similarities, but I don't think they're the same. Like, you don't spend, I've seen the hours that it takes to train a dog, and the dedication, the time, the responsibility, the emotion from yourself in regards to it.
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone have that towards their thermal handheld device or their scope. I haven't seen anyone out there patting their thermal scope going, good girl, good girl. Like, look, I don't know. Maybe there is someone out there, but
some people might.
What are your thoughts on that? Because you've got the dog. You're the one who's spent that much time. When someone does compare a thermal to the dog and say it's sort of the same, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, my personal thought is it's the time they've put into the dog that I think offsets that to the thermal. So, for instance, you're training the dog and you would be doing maybe 2 training sessions a day, 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So you do that over 2 years, 3 years, you can start to add up time there. Plus you're also feeding the dog, looking after it. It's a companion animal too, which is great. With the thermal, I suppose you're bolting it on and you go, well, depending on if you've got private access or not, if you've got private access, you're going at night time, flicking the thermal on, scanning, there's the animal, bang, we shot it, it's dead. But with the dog, the great thing is you can use it during the day. For instance, you went to Mooragle. When you went to Mooragle, it's a very popular forest to go hunting in, obviously. And so it'd be a lot of pressure on there. Maybe the bucks went nocturnal. Maybe they're not staying out in daylight hours as much as they used to. So this is where the dog can come in handy, where you can take a, 3/4 up a ridge, and then all the thermals coming up, she can be smelling that as you're traversing around the contour. And then if she hits that line, she can look down and look straight into it. If you had a thermal on and you're walking around the ridge and you're looking straight down, then you might find the exact same thing. So there is a comparison, I suppose you'd say. But in saying that, you haven't bolted the dog onto your gun to take it where it needs to go. You had to raise this animal from a very young age and teach it how you want to work with it, then learn what the dog is thinking just by how it reacts to looking at stuff and smelling things, making up a summary off that, then going, right, this is what's going on right now, this is what she is smelling, this is what she's seeing, this is what she is thinking. Then from there, you know how to, in a sense, manipulate that dog to do what you want it to do. And she knows the game plan is to find the deer at the end of the day. We want to find the deer. That's what we want to do. So be it alive or not, if she finds one, life is great either way. Yeah, that's my opinion on it anyway.
I mean, you could probably also say that the dog is almost like a trail camera on steroids.
Oh, 100%.
Because when you're looking at if you're having the argument that, dog's sort of cheating, well, I mean, the same is sort of happening with the trail cam because you're putting it out to find out what's going on when you're not there. And the dog's almost doing that for you, but while you're there, because it's tapping into its senses. But it can only tap into its senses if you have trained that dog well to be able to do so. I've got 2 dogs, and they're definitely not hunting dogs. One of them's scared of its own shadow, and the other one's a German Shepherd that can't stop barking. So for me, neither of them would be good out in the field. But this is the thing. It's when I look at it and I hear people talking about this big comparison, and I understand that you can say it's a probably, and tell me if I'm wrong here. I think if you're going to say the dog is cheating, I don't know if that's an accurate assumption because of the work that you've put in.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas with the thermal, there's not. And the thermal's only benefited or grown in popularity because of technology and pricing. Whereas a dog, you can buy the best dog with the best bloodlines. If you don't dedicate that time and effort and really hone its skills, that dog's going to turn out to be no good. Or when I say no good is an indicating dog. All right, it's probably going to be a great pet, but that's at the end of the day, if you're buying a dog that has those bloodlines and has been really bred to track or indicate, that's what you want it to be doing. But that comes down to the owner, and then that becomes, I guess that I personally feel that offsets everything else. So if you're using the dog has become an extension of yourself because you have trained the dog, you have developed the dog. It's almost like when you hunt, you train and develop your own skills. When we first all go out in the bush, we're probably all too fast, all too noisy, stumbling around, not knowing what to look for, not knowing what sign is, etc. But you hone those skills and you get better and better and better. And that's what the dog is. It's an extension of you when you're hunting.
Yeah, no, totally agree there. Playing devil's advocate here, actually. So going away on the Hunter's Campfire deer camp, we got to use thermals while we were there, which is fantastic because I can't afford to buy one, but it's great for InfraRay. Shout out to InfraRay for lending us some binoculars and going out and scanning the gullies with the binocular was a hard thing in itself because it was so thick in there that you would go over the top of a ridge, look down in there with a thermal, and then if you kept on moving on, you go the next one, look through again. But everyone's thinking you're going to see a deer image in the thermal, but you're going to see a little bit of flash, a little bit of an ear, a nose, something like that. Whereas for me, I can look down at Joan, and if Joan's got a head looking straight in that direction, I know that is a deer. If she's stiff with her tail up, her paw up, looking straight at that animal, I know that right there is a deer, or sometimes a pig. With the training, doing it, 5-6 times a week, keeping that dog constantly fed, in good condition, and trying to progress it through getting a puppy to getting it home, getting in the crate, getting it crate trained, getting happy with the family, taking it on walks, teaching it to walk out in front of you, teach it to stay a certain amount in front of you as well. Then moving from that to, you've got voice commands, and then eventually shortening those voice commands down with giving them a hand signal at the same time to the point of you just giving hand signals. And so when she looks at you, you can, I know that if she looks at me, I put my hand out, she knows that's a sit straight away. If I put my finger down, that's lay down. If I touch my knee, that's come to me and sit by my side. So to get to that position, though, takes a very long time. It takes a very, very long time, and it's a big commitment. It's a big commitment, but you've got, a year and a half of hard work, and it gets you 10 years of using an absolute advantage. Once again, is that word again? Using absolute advantage out in the field in harvesting animals. It makes your time in the field more valuable, where you can walk and know that if you're going past a certain direction, you got the wind right, that dog is going to indicate and find you that animal if it's in that section that you're walking past. There's no second guessing that, which is fantastic. It speeds up the results, in my opinion. In saying that, the time that you would spend walking through the gullies and everything like that when you first start hunting, it's the same with the dogs. So the only difference is you're doing that at home. You're not doing that out in the field. You're doing that at home. Taking them on those short walks, teach them avoidance training so that way they don't, indicate echidnas or wombats or kangaroos or, they see a snake, they'll come straight. She comes straight back to me if she sees a snake. She walks by my side. I know that there's a snake in the area because she'll just come back to me, look in that direction, and I'll know if I look just down there, somewhere there might be a snake. So that's quite good. In saying that, like she has indicated a wombat to me, but the thing is you can't train for that at home unless you have a live wombat. You can't pick up a dead wombat off the road and use that. It's actually illegal for you to do that, believe it or not. So the only way you can do that is if you're out in the field. So there are pros and cons to the program, but in essence, it's more. I quite enjoy it because it's not a massive slog to get right up the top of the hill to start glassing and stuff like that. I can hunt during the middle of the day when everyone's probably back at camp, when all the bucks are probably bedded down and all the does are bedded down. I can be walking with the dog down along the contours and just seeing if she can indicate any deer that are down below, maybe even bedding, and maybe even put one up. Who knows? So that I find is the best part about it.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, and for me it really stands out, is the efficiency. Is that you even going into a new state forest where you don't know much about the area, you can almost get in there and have a 50-50 or maybe a bit better shot at chasing deer because you've got a dog that can sense where you are. You've got a dog that can sense where the deer are and show you which way to go. I mean, there's been plenty of times I've gone in there and found some real good trails or found really great sign, but there's no animal there. Which way did they go? And if you're following the trail, we've all been in the situation where you're following a trail along. I know some people don't like to do it. I don't really mind. And it branches off and it might go in 4 different directions. Which way did the deer go in the most current sort of time frame? Now that becomes an issue as a hunter, that you've got to make a decision where you'd not potentially got any information to make that decision on. Yes, you might be able to sort of look around and there might be some fresh sign or something like that. Then, oh, great, I can follow that because I know, hey, here is something that's more active than not. But if there's nothing there, you are guessing. And that, for me, is where the dog comes into its own going, hey, if you come up to a fork in the road, which way are you going? And the dog's saying, hey, it's this way. Man, that's just invaluable in my opinion.
No, you're 100% right. I will take you back to a hunt I had at a southern state forest. And we're walking along the track, me and other 2 mates. And as we're heading along the track, Joan just stopped, looked straight down the ground, sniffed, and then turned hard left. And it wasn't a wind scent, it was a ground scent. So she's sniffing on the ground. And when she put her head straight down, I could see there in a pile of grass was the deer scat. And I thought, okay, we're onto something here. And it looked like sandbar. And so she looked at me and she didn't move. So that to me is we need to go this way. So I stopped the boys and said, I'm going to go that way. If he's want to come, he's more welcome to join me. So they followed me. We walked up the track. We would have gone about, maybe 100 metres, and Jose's nose is still on the ground at this point. This is where my inexperience hunting over a dog came into play. But as we were walking up, my two friends were abreast of me to the right, about 20 metres or so. And as we got to the end of this track, she was sniffing, and then as she sniffed, she got to the end of the track, and then she started circling to the right. And as soon as she started circling to the right, there was a large sandbar deer took off in front of my mate, probably about 20 metres away. And he couldn't get a shot off at it, unfortunately, because all you could see was the head, shoulders, nothing, head, shoulders, nothing, as it kept on running past. But it sounded like a freight train going through the forest. But Joan was circling, and she was literally walking on the exact spot that deer had taken. Now, that sandbar had probably seen us at about, I'm going to say, probably when we first jumped on the track, she'd probably seen us 100 metres away. But she bolted as soon as we stopped. As we were walking on the track, her nose was straight towards the ground, so I knew that she wasn't following an air sense, so she didn't have a direct smell. So as far as I knew, we were just following an animal that was walking through on the track. And even though I was keeping my eye to the left, what ended up happening was the deer was on the right. As soon as she got the direct scent, she turned straight towards the deer, and the deer took off on that spot. So going back 10 minutes, we would have walked straight past that deer. We would have walked straight past that deer if she had not turned, indicated, and gone, let's go this way. So that's where it's invaluable.
Look, okay, so that actually takes me on to my latest hunt. I basically, for previous listeners of my other podcast, it's now shut down. I really talked about, having a young family. I've got 3 under 3 years of age, and it's very hard to get away, and two of those are twins. And it's very hard to get away a lot. So
100%.
I really need to make the most of my time going away. Now, one of the things I did do is go, okay, hey, I'm going to get a bow, get proficient at using that bow, and then I'm going to try and tackle some state forests that are a little bit closer in travelling time. Being able to get down to Belanglo is a real easy trip, and, it's under an hour. So to be able to get into a state forest in under an hour for me is awesome. So I went out for the first time. I've had some issues getting into Belanglo with the floods and road closures and misinformation and disinformation and people telling us different things. So for me, this time was really good. So I got out there and I'd done what I normally do with the state forest. I'd jumped on Google Maps. I'd had a look at, the lay of the land and thought, where would they be coming from? Where are they going to be moving? It has been really cold. And actually the day I went out was -4 degrees. So it was a cold, cold morning. Again, like I did when I went down to Mooragle North, I just went, well, they're going to be wanting to warm up. They're going to possibly be coming off some of the private land. And let's see what happens. I took out a new hunter, like a brand spanking new. He'd never seen a track, or he'd never seen sign. He hadn't seen. Yeah, well, look, it's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I just went, you know what? Even though I haven't got a deer on the ground yet, I do understand and know what I'm looking for, and I just look. Credit goes, I guess, to the Australian Hunters Club, and they've got a basically an online platform, and you can put a profile on there, and people can reach out, and that's how it happens. This bloke from Grant, shout out to Grant, really good guy. Just messaged us. We got chatting. Seemed like a great bloke, and I went, hey, let's go. Obviously, I was the only one hunting because just the numbers in Belanglo, there's only 2 at any one time, and one person had already booked in. So he just came out to observe and just walk around and show him. And look, to be honest, I sort of am taking it as, hey, it's with the bow is a lot harder than with the rifle, but it's a good learning experience to get out there, to pattern, to look, and I just love getting out in the bush. And hey, 100%. It's a win. It's a win. Yeah. Like, any day in the bush hunting is a win. If I don't harvest something, it's not the end of the world for me.
Yeah.
So we got out there, and I won't go into too much detail because I'm hoping he'll come on the podcast at some stage, because I can't remember what it was like when I first went out to a state forest and found what I was looking for. It's been quite a while. So I really want to have a chat about that. But we found sign very, very easy and very, very quickly. So I'd marked down sort of 2 spots that I really wanted to hit. Did one in the morning, and then sort of one was more in the afternoon, lunchtime, because I just wanted to sort of get a bit of a lay of the land and look around. Now, found a heap of sign. It was fantastic. Like, I think the first thing we saw, within 10 steps into the bush, we'd found prints.
Straight away.
Oh, it was great. And
wow.
I come back to what we're talking about here, because you were talking about the Sambar only took off when you stopped and you were very close. There was that much sign around, and fresh sign. Like, at one stage, I think I'd found a print that was pooled with water from it stepping in. So, and there was still a bit of murky, muddy water. So that's,
yes,
it hadn't, the mud, dirt, silt, whatever you want to call it, it hadn't dropped down all the way. It was just the tiniest little bit. So that's pretty damn fresh.
100%.
So I was really shocked. It was a really windy day. Terrible for bow hunting. The wind was swirling like crazy. It was all over the place.
Yeah.
And it was thick. So it was, I was bush bashing through, and there was many a time I was holding the bow above my head with 2 hands just to get through without it getting caught up on something.
Yeah.
It made me really wonder, because we did not bump any deer. And this made me think that, hey, what's going on here? Are they close? I'd never see them. Are they just laying still? Are they just bedding down and just not moving and going, hey, unless they get super, super close, I'm not going to give myself away here, because, A, the wind's all over the place. There's a heap of noise. It's really thick. And that's almost what I felt like, because the area was just too good, with too much sign and fresh sign, to have nothing there for us to see at all. Now, I do realise the wind swirling was against us and they could have picked up our scent from further away, but I still feel that it was just very unusual. I've bumped a hell of a lot more deer with a hell of a lot less sign. So for me, I was really questioning it.
Well, how wet was the ground you were walking on at the time is one thing. And the next thing is, how slow were you walking when you actually did find that sign?
Okay. Now, this is one thing I will probably say was the best I've personally done.
Yep.
I found with the bow, I was so much slower and quieter.
You got your ninja on. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a mindset thing. I really don't know, because I was really rolling my feet and walking quietly. And I've noticed, like, obviously there's still times when you're cracking sticks and breaking things, because there was just so much crap to go through. But I felt personally it was the best stalking that I've ever done.
Yep.
And I was sitting there going, I'm so much quieter than I normally am with the rifle. And I don't know whether I was taking a hell of a lot more care, because I know with the bow I've got to get a hell of a lot closer. So I was in that mindset leading into it. But
yeah, of course, the range will be in the back of your mind at all times, obviously. In saying that, though, you're saying it's really, really thick, so you're ready for close contact. Is what you're ready for. Ready for a deer to jump out right in front of you, or just to see a flicker of an ear looking straight at you. That's what you're looking for. You're not looking out in the field 150 meters away trying to pinpoint something. It's right in front of you.
And that's what I was doing. We worked a lot of creek lines and the like. And get back to what you asked about the rain, or how wet was the ground. The ground wasn't wet. So it was in sort of certain patches, but that's why I was going, oh, this is good, because it wasn't wet. It hadn't rained for a while. And to be able to find prints with water in them, and some of it slightly murky. Now, we're not saying full murky. We're saying that it had, sort of dissipated down to the ground, the bottom of the print, but it was still really good indication there. And I was just, it was an interesting one for me. It made me question a few things, going, okay, well, is it that because it's so windy, they're just bedding down and they're not moving, and it's playing almost a game of chicken that I've got to be on top of them? Because we weren't walking through, like, we were trying our best to, go through a trail through the thick stuff, or walk around it. Like, you don't want to be going through where you can't see in front of you. There was a couple of times there I couldn't even see where my feet were going. So, like, that's not ideal.
That's thick.
It was
That's
thick.
proper thick.
Yeah, there was a couple there that he asked me at one stage how thick is this in like sort of in your ratings? And I was like, at the parts at the time, I was like anywhere between sort of 6 and 9. of sort of the thickest stuff. There was definitely a couple that you're just sitting there going, mate, there could be deer 5 meters away and we'll never see it here because it's chest height, probably some a bit taller, and just, you know, you've got a visibility of 2 meters, 1 meter, half a meter, some of it.
It's quite interesting to think back. So you've got a newbie with you and you're walking through this state forest. He's probably copying everything you're doing. You're looking out in front. You're probably also attuned to the noise coming from behind you as well. One guy that I watched at the hunters camp, he is much more mature than I am. I won't call him old, but he's much more mature than I am. And watching him stalk deer when he knows there's heaps of sign around and he's getting close and he's just waiting to see something, he will take 3 steps, bring up the binos and scan. Take 3 steps, bring up the binos and scan. Because there's no use in walking through an area where there's heaps of sign to find more sign. If there's heaps of sign there, then you know that there's something just here. So just around that corner there might be something, or just over this brow there might be something. So best thing to do there is obviously, as you did, hold back, watch. Another good thing to do is look down the ground, see where those tracks are going, to see where they're veering off to. And if you can try and envision what's beyond those bushes, if you've got a map handy there, or you get out a Venza and see what contours are behind that, to see if they're trying to dip down into a gully or they're trying to get up a ridge, you might be able to head them off or get in front of them that way, depending which way the wind's going. But also, here's another side thought. So when you were walking, you're saying that the track was muddy and you could see the fresh sign in front of you. By putting your heel down, rolling the side of your foot, putting your toes down, that stops that sucking noise on that boot. A lot of guys, if they put their heel down, the whole flat of their foot down, bring up the ball, you get that noise. That rolling of that ankle, bringing that front down, very good tactic to make sure to make noise. Another good thing is, if you're walking along a track and you see some small tusket grass or some green patches of grass, those parts that you know are not going to make noise when you step on them. So they're probably the better parts to step on. In saying that, if you put your foot down in front of you and you're nidgering along and you can feel resistance underneath your foot and you know that there's something there, you can lift your foot up. Obviously move it so you don't crack a stick. You keep moving forward. And you get angry at yourself because you cracked the stick, but best thing to do is stop. Once you crack the stick, stop, let everything settle, look around, get everything nice and calm again, and then you can move off. If you keep on moving when you crack the stick, animals that have heard that noise, don't get me wrong, sticks fall down from the trees all the time. But if you've cracked here, then you've gone a few steps and you've cracked again, that starts creating a pattern to which the deer are going to start to get tuned into. If you crack one stick, nothing happens for about 10, 15 minutes. Then the deer's like, oh, that was just a branch that fell down or moved or something like that. So, yeah, you've done well there in that sense. In saying that, maybe you just got unlucky that day, mate. Maybe you just got unlucky that day.
Clarify one thing. It wasn't all wet. So it was sort of wet parts when we were going down towards the creeks.
Oh, okay.
So it was a real weird terrain. There was sometimes it was rock, sometimes it was just dirt, sometimes it was, grass, and then sometimes it was mud. So it was a bit all over the place. I really think the wind was howling and it was swirling. When we first got there, I was really excited because we were contouring around sort of a hill, and it's pretty thick. It's pretty steep terrain there in Belanglo. And so we're contouring around, but the wind was perfect. It was blowing straight into our face, and in front of us was just the sun lit up areas. And I was like, this is fantastic. And we'd seen signs straight away. And I was like, this is perfect. A bit more open as well. There's some really good glassing sort of areas. And I was sitting there going, this is great. I'm super confident that we'll be able to find some good trails. We'll be, potentially see something from coming in and whatnot. Found some great trails, found some great sign, but we didn't see any animals. Then when we'd sort of set up and got a nice little gully, and I was like, okay, we can glass this gully as, potentially as they come up. You could see a couple of trails coming up the gully. And then the wind started swirling. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not going to help. Put our scent throughout, and who knows what will happen. So that's hunting. And I'm not complaining about that. It's a good experience because I went, you know what? We don't need to go as slow now because my scent's going everywhere anyway. Yep. Let's just get a bit of that's my first time in the state forest. Let me let's get some kilometers under the feet and find out
100%
where some good areas are. And I've done that, and I'm super keen. I've booked another one to get back in there, because I found a really good spot that I think I'll be able to sort of do a sit and wait and have sort of an ambush where I'm nice and protected, enclosed, probably even protected from the wind. So that's going to limit that scent as well. Hopefully that will, might pay some dividends, or at least get me in a position to see some deer and go from there. But look, it's all learning. I love it. It's so much fun.
Oh,
and
you got to take advantage of those days. You got to take advantage of them. You've gone there, your scent's gone everywhere. Right, I'm going to do some kilometers. I'm going to find where certain clearings are. I'm going to find if there's any sign, where tracks lead to, stuff like that. Mark them on your Avenza maps for next time. The good thing is you took advantage of that situation when you knew what was happening there, Matt. So you've done well there. You're very happy with yourself about that. But how was the experience from your mate that come down? What do you think of the whole thing?
I don't want to go into too much, because he did. Hopefully we'll get him on the podcast. But no, he thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was great to see. I got a little bit of, what's the word for it? It made me feel good, because that was the first time he's found or seen prints, scat, rubs, scrapes. And I was able to show him all that. And that was... It was nice. And I told him from the get-go, I was very transparent, and I always have been. I'm not, I've never been someone out here saying I'm the best hunter, and I definitely don't have an ego. So I said to him from the get-go.
None of us are, Matty. None of us are.
well, I said to him, look, I'm happy to take you out. By all means, I haven't got a deer on the ground yet. I do have a pretty good understanding of what I'm looking for, and generally have seen deer when I go to the state forest. I just haven't been able to execute. I said, but if you're happy to come out and just go for a walk and a wander, I'm happy to take, just tag along, because it's a new forest for me too. I really just want to see the area, and, company's always good. We had some great chats throughout the day. He's a top bloke. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was really nice.
Well, you've encouraged someone.
Well, it was really nice to see him, and have that there and see the sign and whatnot, because I started on my own and went out on my own cold and went through it. And that was good, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I don't think I'd change too much of my own journey, because, I've liked it. And for me, it's been about the experience. It's been about getting out there, and it's, I'm not worried that I haven't got a deer yet. If I was worried, I wouldn't do a podcast telling everybody about it. So for me, it's the journey, and it's the learning aspect of it, and it's that connection with nature, and going, hey, what more do I need to learn? Where are my weaknesses as a hunter? What can I improve upon? And every time I go out, something new happens, and even just the reflection. And one of the things I've really grown to cherish, I guess, lately is starting to get a few more people that I talk to about it, and be able to say, hey, this, and bounce some ideas off them. And that's where this podcast comes in too, because I get to chat to some really good people and say, hey, what are your thoughts about this? And we unpack things. And I learned, like, one of the previous episodes, the hunting calls, man, that was cool. Just hearing how they're made and how they can communicate with animals. And that's something that when I started this, I'd never would have even thought of really honing in or thinking about why or how they work. And that's something I've continued to develop. And I think that's probably the greatest thing about hunting, is I don't think anyone out there is the perfect hunter. And I think it is the people that think they're amazing that are probably not going to grow or develop. And that's a danger. And that's a danger in every field. When you think you know everything, and you think that I don't need to learn anything else, that's a danger. And for me, that's something that the day I start thinking like that is the day I get out of hunting, because then it's not challenging anymore.
That's exactly right. It becomes mundane, and that's what you didn't get into the sport for. Not in the sport for that. In saying that, are you writing a journal down? Are you putting down thoughts and all that sort of stuff?
I do. I have that. And I guess the other thing I'm lucky about is I almost have an audio journal with the podcast. So being able to have this conversation and have it there that I can go back and listen to and say, oh, okay, it was windy there. I was just tracking. Was that a good idea? Should I have gone, you know what? Yes, it's windy, but go a bit slower. But that's, yeah. So I do have the journal and I write things down and where I see things and what time of day. So I can try and pattern. I think my biggest one, though, again, I still haven't gone to one state forest more than twice.
Yes. Yeah,
that's a problem.
Yeah. So it's a guy over in New Zealand I watch quite fanatically, and he's been hunting this particular forest for the last 20 years. So he knows all the tracks. He knows all the clearings. He knows where the deer are in summer, in winter, in autumn. He knows where they're all going to hang out, where the nearest water sources are. He knows all that sort of stuff in that particular pine forest. So when he goes out, he knows that he's probably going to get something within the first day or so that he heads out. And he will go straight to a spot and go, yeah, I'm just after an eater. He'll know he'll go to this little spot here where there's fresh grass this time of year. Turn up, yep, there's the deer, bang, shoot the deer. Life is great. Come back home with a feed full of deer. If he wants to do something a little bit more out of the ordinary, he might take his recurve bow and try to shoot a deer that way. But he's always trying to challenge himself, and he's always learning something every time he goes out. And this guy has hunted this exact same spot for 20 years and still teaching him things. So you'll never stop learning. And I think everyone can be a professional in their field. And depending on what you're trying to pursue in that field, try to find someone who is at the front of that. Try to find someone who is dragging that chain for everyone and showing everyone what the go is and how to do it. Like there are heaps of guys down in Victoria who are sambar hunters who have written books that they pretty much teach a uni degree on it if they wanted to. If you want to hunt a sambar, reach out to those guys, have a chat to them guys, get those guys to take you out hunting sambar. Like that gets you in the field and gets your experience up so quickly that you may even just do well, I know with Errol Mason, he's got a course there where you can go and do the course, and then there are guys that have gone, and girls, that have gone hunting the week after and shot deer straight away just by being taught those couple of things. So it's good to find someone who's great in that field and then pursue that person, have a chat to them. Most people in the shooting and hunting, I'll call it a family, they all want to help each other anyway. Everyone knows each other's struggles. They all know what it's like to start out. And just to give someone a little bit of a leg up makes you feel good, doesn't it, mate? Makes you feel great.
Mate, 100%. And before we wrap up, there's one story you've told me and it's always stuck with me. But I want the listeners to hear about one of your trophies. And it's not because it's the biggest animal that you've shot.
Oh, yeah.
And this is why I hold you in very high esteem, and it's why I really want to surround myself with good people with good morals. And you're right up there. And I'll let you tell the story if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell it. If no one does the same thing I did, that'd be great. I suppose the lesson is wait for the right shot and don't be a shit hunter, I suppose. But anyway, we were on private property. We had access to a private property over there, and we've gone hunting in the morning, contoured this ridge line, come around, and 70 meters from us there was a bunch of fallow, a bachelor mob. Some were standing up, a couple were sitting down, and there was one sitting down, had a real nice head on him, and I thought, okay, well, we've got meat. I can take a head here and proceed to lay down. And I wasn't this calm when I did it, Matt. I'll tell you that much now. I wasn't this calm. But anyway, I laid down, lined up this deer. And you should never shoot a deer while it's laying down because its scapula is tucked in underneath it and it's rolled onto one side. And this is what happened at this point in time. This deer was laying down, its scapula was laid down. And so when I shot at it, this deer has gotten up and it's taken off on 3 legs. And as it's taken off, he's gone down this hill, and I've stood up thinking he's just going to be just down here, and we couldn't see him. He wasn't there. So I walked, followed his trail, went down a little bit more, went around the ridge where I thought he went, come up the other side, got the top, got the binos out, had a look, and I was looking through, and there was a heap of fern about 150 meters down, I just seen this antler sticking out of the fern, and I thought, beauty, he's just there. So I started walking towards him, got up close, grab the antler and lifted it up, and it's a dead head. It's not even the deer that I shot. So that sucked. Anyway, once again, started looking for the deer, walked down a bit more, seen some blood, walked around another ridge, and then followed that, got down to the bottom of a gully. He sprung up. He's taken off. I couldn't get a shot off him again. I was so angry at myself. Once again, followed him down, lost him. Next day, went out, had a look for him again, found where he had sat down, followed that, looked in all the likely places, found that he was still moving about, and I felt terrible at this point. I felt like I've got an injured animal, and it just, I suppose, it makes you feel like the worst person in the world. It really, really does. Once I got round to a certain point down a gully, there was a heap of blood there. And I thought, okay, he's just around here somewhere. Followed along and went into the national park. And I'm like, right, well, I can't go into there. We'll leave that be. So after 2 days of them pursuing this animal, because that ruined the whole weekend for me, all I was doing was trying to find this animal that I'd injured. It got to the last night, and I was dead tired. And so we're out spotlighting for the pigs. And I said to the boys, if you see anything they need a hand with, let me know. I'm just in the front seat. I'll probably be asleep. And I just remember them yelling, Frank, is that your deer? And then I turned up on the hill, and there he was, and he was hobbling. He was carrying his leg, hobbling. And I said, just shoot him. Just shoot him. So one of my mates shot him, got up the top there. I was so relieved that we had anchored him and got him down, and that's the only deer that I've mounted. Everything else is a bald out head, but he's the only one I mounted, and he just reminds me not to be too hasty. Hold your shots and just be a better person. Be a better person. So yeah, that's my it's my humbling experience, Matt, when it came to the hunting fallow.
And I think for our listeners hearing that, they'll understand what a genuinely good guy you are. And to me, that's why you're going to be a regular on the podcast. And we're going to hear about your journeys as you go on. And it's just you're a good bloke. And that's who I want to surround myself with. And mate, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you sharing that, because it's it's not a nice story, but that happens in hunting. And
it does.
It's part of it. But what I love about it is the fact that you've not just learnt from that, but you've then made it something that's a genuine reminder by mounting it and saying, hey, I'm never going to do that again, which I love. So, mate, props to you.
Yeah, well, people look at him on the wall and then go to the shed and realise that there are bigger ones in the shed than what's on the wall. And then you tell them why that he's up there. It's because every time I sit down, I can see him. Every time I eat dinner, I can see him. He's a constant reminder to be better. That's what he is to me. That's why he's there.
Mate, I appreciate you sharing. I'm sure our listeners do as well. It's been a good chat tonight. I am very thankful that you've come on. And
thanks for having me. I'm so humbled. You've wanted me on the podcast.
Humbled, mate. I think you're going to be quite popular. I think the listeners are going to know how genuine you are, and you're going to be quite a popular personality on this show. So, mate, it's been good.
I appreciate it.
Can't wait for the next time. Keep doing what you're doing. And listeners, bye for now. If you have a topic, guest, question, or any gear that you want to hear about on the podcast, shoot us an email, australianhuntingandbeyond@gmail.com. Alternatively, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All the links are in the show notes. If you haven't already, make sure you give us a review and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.